today, we're going to get into a little bit of product, some of the product enhancements and changes we made. Two products specifically, I think, that will most interest you in this group and what we know to be the makeup of your market. Before I get into that, what I wanted to do is really just find out. We got 3 more weeks to close this year, and what I'd like to do a little bit is make sure that the training is not just relevant to what we think you should hear, but what is it that you guys have opportunities in? Where is it that if you could wave the magic wand, what is it that you would change? What's holding you back? And what is it that you want to be working on in 2013 that you're not yet working on now? And what are some of the obstacles? So this will be, as you know, for those of you that have met me, it's usually an all play, which means I don't do all the talking. I like audience participation. So let's say from a sense of 2013, some of your goals, personal, professional, whatever you want. What are some of the things that you'd like to do? Let's keep professional for now. That you'd like to.
That's probably good.
Yeah, we'll start with that. How are your businesses going? How was 2012? Good, great, fabulous, fair, poor?
Unbelievable.
A year of your life you'll never get back?
Yeah.
All right, so for those that had unbelievable 2012s, what was unbelievable about it? What worked well? What did you do that's working? How were sales?
Sales were good.
Good? Who in the room feels their sales were good? All right. How do we define good? Number of clients, number of size of policies,
Quality of
income,
appointments.
quality of appointments. So we had quality appointments. I think I saw someone nodding their head. Number of apps. What else? Show me the money. How much did I make? I wrote one $230,000 case.
Whoa. What a great job that
Is
is.
that a good year? Great
Until
year?
they say no, and then you're dead.
Until they die in month 7 and you owe some of it back. Always get the annual premium. Or don't spend the money until the 13th month. All right, so we had good quality appointments. Apps were good. Maybe our incomes were good. Policy size. What am I interested in policy size? Why do I care about that? I mean, what's the difference between $1 million and $100,000 and a $10,000 benefit?
The caliber of client.
My market, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, you guys are finding ways,
Yeah, that's what I want to learn how to do.
yeah, to up market, right?
Yeah.
To get in front of the folks that are more interested in chatting about this than this while good, but more interested in talking about this than this while good. So everyone needs what we do. Find the market that you most enjoy spending time with, and then look to move up. You shouldn't be apologizing in this business for the amount of money you make, right? But when you add a couple of decimals to the death benefit, right? You normally add a couple of decimals to the premium, and when you add a couple of decimals to premium, you add a couple of decimals to your, what I'll call first year commissions. So if I can get 1,000 in premium from you rather than 100, that's all it took. The process was the same, the product conversation was the same, the apps took the same amount, except for this. Ready? That's the only difference in time committed. Now, what if I could do it again? Some of you, I might be hitting a nerve here, but I shouldn't be. What if you could do it again? Just a zero. Just a zero. There are a good amount of cases being written in Charleston every day within, Somerville, whatever, Mount Pleasant, Charleston, within this area. There's good money. Okay? So again, as I increase the death benefit, I can increase my premium and increase my premium, increase my first years. So that's why this may be important. Now, you said that you'd like to focus a little bit on your market and maybe evolving a little bit, right? This is a good to great place to start. It's just that as quickly or as soon as you can move up, you want to. The reason is when you're working in this market, you get referrals to similar folks. When you get working in this market, you get referrals to similar folks. Okay? So the difference between this and this, in my opinion, is going to be referrals. The difference between working in the $1 million market and the $10 million death benefit market is centers of influence, which is just a specific type of referral. Okay? So I don't necessarily know what Ronnie does or his impact in the market, but he introduced me to some of the folks that are in his circle. Whereas he's an attorney or he's an accountant, whatever he may be, when I start to get referrals from a center of influence, someone that's well positioned and well respected in the community and in the market that I want to work in, okay? The market that I want to work in. So we can talk a little bit about target markets. What's the definition of a target market? You have common folks, common needs, common likes, dislikes, whatever. You have access to them. Hopefully it's perpetual, and you enjoy being in that market. So for me particularly, I didn't want to work in the doctor's market. Some of you may come from a family of doctors. It may be a great market for you. It wasn't a good market for me. Wanted nothing to do with doctors. I mean, as far as I was concerned, doctors, they all went to smart school. They know more about what they do, they know more about what you do than you do, and they know more about the mechanic than changing the muffler. However, since they don't want to get greasy, they don't tell the doctor, they don't tell the mechanic, excuse me, how to change the muffler on their car with a Chilton's book for diagnosis on the whatever, 2003 Mercedes. They don't do it. But they will tell you exactly what they should be doing regarding their financial well-being. Okay, so the one thing that I don't want you to ever forget about is a target market is one that you have access to that's perpetual, where there are similar needs and referral opportunities, but key is one that you enjoy. Okay, so for those of you that who had 40 applications in the year submitted, life apps. And how about 40 underwritten? Who had 40 life apps underwritten? Okay, so that was a big difference, going from guaranteed issue to underwritten, right? So that's actually going to be something that has to do with market. I would like for all of you to start to work your way into markets where the people can stand on their own health underwriting. Those are normally better, they're normally more qualified people that lead. They're not better people. They're more qualified prospects that lead to larger cases. Because any policy that you're getting under a simplified or guaranteed issue, it's usually not very big. It's not an estate planning case, right? I mean, you get anywhere from $2,000 to $50,000 in protection on them. Closer to 10. Okay, so if we want to seriously move markets, we want to find people that are individually underwritable. Okay? Now those folks, they're harder sales because it actually is, we're selling it. They're not buying it. As soon as someone knows they need insurance, it's normally too late to get it for them, right? So when someone tells me, well, Brian, I don't need life insurance, I always just go, well, thank God, that's good to know. Because if we wait until you need it, you can't get it, right? So we want to find the folks that don't think they need it, even though we both know they need it, and have the conversation. It's a little bit harder than someone that just had, chest pains after a bypass surgery 2 years ago. Those folks would pay you any amount of premium for. Okay, so who had 60 or 80 or 100 apps, underwritten or not? Okay, so again, we've had some people with some policy size, some people with apps. Those are opportunities where Ronnie and I and Dave and Mike, everybody, we're here and available to help you. All right. One of the best ways I have found to move from here to here is fact finding. Okay, referrals first, but then fact finding. Position yourself more in a consultative space than in that product salesperson. Okay, this is what I have for you because it's all I have. It's what's right for you because it's all I have too. So it's great that that works out, right? So I couldn't help noticing how underinsured you were. There was a pretty funny cartoon that, a guy with the pocket, the classic insurance hat, feather, guy walking down the street said, I couldn't help but noticing how underinsured you were. So what we want to do is, I think, start to fact find, which is part of your sales process. So again, I know we've spoken with some of you about this, but what products are you finding that you're talking about that have led to an unbelievable or good 2012, but may kind of impede you from getting to a more, let's say, evolved, if no other reason, if no other definition, 2013. So,
Okay, ask the question again.
what products have you sold in 2012 that led to this good 2012, but you think may be in the way of you getting to an evolved 2013? What are some of the products you're selling? And some of them we're going to talk about that.
Medicare Advantage program.
Okay, Medicare Advantage, MA.
Yep.
Call
We sold a ton of them and we make $400, here you go.
it. Okay, $400 per case. How many cases can you knock out?
Some guys did 25, some guys did 50, 70.
Okay.
In a 2-month period.
Okay, so not a bad 2-month period,
Right.
right? So it's somewhat limited as to a time frame. It's limited as to how much. Do we have any policies that cap the amount of commissions you can make on it? No. So you're limited to $400. Okay, so you have to do it in sheer volume, which again is this way. Nothing wrong with it. But can you get to the income that you want in 2013 at 400 times X to where you want to be? Because that's a lot of selling. That's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of paperwork. Do any of them change their mind or come off, or once you write it, it's done?
Very few.
Very few. So at least you know the work you do sticks, right? Which is not always the case with a lot of these cases. As you move up the food chain in policies and in your sales process, you'll notice that fewer and fewer come off. The retention is better in this market than this market. And it's better in this market than this market. So again, you have got to do a lot of work, I would imagine, I hope, to get from here to here. Even at 40 grand, that's what you wanted to do in the year. You got to do a lot of work. Okay, so if you can do that 40 grand in a matter of 2 months, well, it's pretty good, 2 months, right? But why not do 40 grand every 2 months? No one's in your way. That's what you want. Figure out what you want, then back in what you have to do to get it. But don't forget about backing into what you have to do to get it, because nobody cares what you want. The only thing that matters is what are you committed to doing to make what you want to happen your reality. So what else? So that was one option. What else are you doing? Some term sales? Anyone sell term? Anyone sell some, I don't know, annuities?
Yep.
Anyone handle mutual funds? Any registered reps?
Just Dave.
Just Dave. Okay, anyone handle property and casualty, real, whatever it may be. So pretty much term annuities, any universal life? Okay. Now how are we determining the amount of death benefit that somebody needs, and how are we determining which product is right?
Yes,
We normally,
what their needs are.
We're letting them tell us.
Yeah.
okay, if you're letting them tell you, that's great. So you're doing an actual consultative-based approach. So what I hope is not happening is we're in a product sale position where I sit down with someone and I throw out the hook until one of these baits hit them, right? hey, you know what, I got a great opportunity on term insurance. Oh, my garbage man said never buy term insurance, so I pull it back in, then I throw out IUL. And their accountant said don't mix cash value and life insurance. So I pull it back in, and I'm showing, and you just keep throwing out a hook till you snag a few in the side. Right? Probably not the way you envision building your financial practice. So when you have a portfolio that is a disconnected collection of product, your life is not going to get easier in 3 years and in 5 years and in 10 years. So you won't know where your next sale is coming from any more than the day you started. And that becomes painful. I mean, we've all seen it. We've lost top of the table agents. Quarter of the table, I mean, big, huge, unbelievable by anyone's standard. And they're gone just because they're like, this is not worth it. So, again, when you have a product-driven sale versus process-driven, you're turning yourself into a handler of commodities. Now, when you commoditize the sale, you make yourself a lot less valuable. Okay? So, here, I am selling product to a customer. Sorry about my back.
You're all right.
Selling product to a customer based upon what? When you're in this situation with a customer, what is the difference between them buying this from you, online, from Joe Schmo down the street, or from Uncle Joe's Insurance out of Wichita?
Nothing.
There's a little difference.
There's a difference in
The
me.
price. That's what they're looking for. Who's the cheapest? Whoever's the cheapest is the best. Now, we don't make any other major purchases in our life based upon what's the cheapest. Price is a part of it. But we also want to know about quality, reputation, service, those types of things. Think about a product, televisions, whatever, electronics. I like Sony, I don't know why. It looks cool. Whenever I've had a problem, they've done what I've needed them to do. So if it's a little bit more than, I don't know, Hitachi, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, if it's 3 times more, that'll matter. So price is somewhat an issue, but it's not the only factor. Did everyone buy the cheapest house they could find? Cheapest car? Cheapest anything? I mean, anyone buy, no, we don't make major purchases based solely upon cheap. But when it comes to our financial independence, let's go cheap? Doesn't make sense, but a lot of us are setting the situation up to be that way. Okay? Now, when you market a process to your client engages in process once they feel comfortable with the relationship. So what would you prefer is driving the likelihood of your financial practice's success? Your ability to generate relationships or your ability to control the pricing of products? How much control do you have over this? It's a nice round number.
Zero.
None. You have no control over that. I would imagine most of you are in this business because you're somewhat like the rest of us, you're control freaks, right? We wanted to control not only where we were going, but how we get there. And then we come into the business and we base it on the one piece probably that we can control the least of, if at all, instead of building relationships. So again, whether it's term insurance, annuities, IUL, whatever it is, Medicare, just it's more of a risk management. Accumulate wealth, then income, distribution, and then estate conservation. So risk management. What do we have to do to protect what you have before you look to accumulate more? So on the board, we have term, we have IUL, we've got, we talked a little bit about final expense, okay? Wealth accumulation, so now we're talking about annuities. Some of the cash value from within permanent plans. Income or wealth distribution is going to be some of the cash value from the insurance or the annuities as we annuitize them, and then estate conservation or estate planning is gonna be the death benefit that we got here initially for income replacement, right? I'm 40 years old, I need this so that if I die, my wife can stay in the house she remembers her husband from, and kids, and college funding, and the mortgages. So as you said, how do we find out how much insurance they need? We ask them questions. Well, I got a $250,000 mortgage. I want to pay for 3 kids' schools at $20,000 apiece for 4 years, so there's 60 times 4. There's another 240. All right. If you know, I know that a lot of people say, don't worry about the funeral, just bury me in the backyard. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if Charleston is anything like Atlanta, we've got rules against that. I mean, you can't just go, they say, buy me a box for, build it from Home Depot. Buy 4 bags of lime and, within $300 you got a nice little box. It's not that easy. Now, I'm going to choose my battles as to where I'm having conversations with folks. If somebody wants to talk about $10,000, I also don't need the gold-lined, paisley interior casket. So I certainly don't want it to be up in this range either. Now, whether you're here, or they say, listen, $200 gets me a shovel and 4 bags of lime, I'm not going to get into a big argument over that, because it's going to mean a difference of $500,000 in death benefit, $510,000, or $550. I don't want to have a big fight over this, because then they shut down, they don't want to do anything. The 500 is the key. Income replacement and major capital assets. So be careful as you're walking someone through a process. Choose your battles. Choose your battles. Most of it's going to come from not only this $250,000 from the mortgage or this for college funding, but if you assume a 5% distribution rate, $50,000 is how much in death benefit? $1 million. You have to have $1 million in insurance at 5% to replace $50,000 in income to somebody. Mm-hmm. So once you determine the insurance amount, which let's say in this case would be about $1 million. You know anyone that's doing about $50,000 in income? Anyone in this room, are there a couple of those in this market that have about $250,000 mortgages, that have 3 kids that they'd like to put $20,000 aside of it? I mean, this is not some. We got a bunch of them in this room, right? So again, this is not some extremely wealthy person. This is your average. These are our neighbors. Now, $1 million to some folks sounds like a lot. So once you determine the amount, don't talk about it anymore. Don't talk in $1 million. Talk in $50,000 in income per year. People understand what $50,000 a year in income sounds like or feels like. $4,000 a month, break it down even more. You know what $4,000 a month says? I say $4,000 a month, everyone's like, yeah, I need it. I say $1 million, they're like, oh man, $1 million. I'd have to sleep with one eye open. Why? You're not worth more dead than alive with $1 million in insurance. You're not. Not if you're making 50 grand. And unfortunately, all of the tests show that 5% in a distribution rate is actually too aggressive. Now they say guaranteed. Wall Street Journal says 2. 4 is maybe. 5, you're done. 6, you're done faster. Just go higher, you're done sooner and sooner and sooner. So at 4, you make it to life. At 2, you make it to life expectancy. At 4, you probably make it to life expectancy. At 6, at 8, at 10, at whatever, you make it until February of 2013.
We've got those fines.
Buy your Christmas presents now.
Right. And really, if someone gives you a check, cash it quick. Because they may expire before the check does. Right? So again, it's like, no more green banana type things. Saying you better buy them that they're already ready to eat. So I determine the amount based upon this need conversation. Now, what type of insurance do I use? That's more so based upon their budget. Okay? So rather than trying to get them as much permanent insurance as you can, because if you walked in with a $100 a month IUL and got somebody $250,000 in insurance, you did a good job, but you didn't do a great job. And when you show up to this family with $250,000 in insurance, you solved probably one of about 4 needs. You solved one of about 4 needs, and certainly not the one that's most permanent. So again, what I would prefer to do is if they have $200 for the year, well then, I gotta get term insurance. If they have $200 a month, okay, then I'm gonna use a permanent plan. So their budget will determine what type. The fact-finding process will determine how much. Okay, but if you can, look to show people the planning process you use of protecting what they have, making them more, spending it, and then giving it away because you have your heirs, you have the charity of your choice, and you have the IRS. You can pick any 2 out of 3. Where is your estate going? You can pick any 2 out of 3. Your heirs, charity of your choice, or the IRS. What do most people pick?
Heirs and children.
I mean in reality, not in... Most people choose the IRS. Why? Because the IRS was extremely brilliant in setting up the default. Because if you don't do anything, the IRS gets the money. That's the default. So the IRS counted on the inherent laziness of people regarding managing their money and behaving financially responsible. So what happens is, while most people would prefer these two, a lot of them are making a charitable contribution to the IRS. And the reason I say charitable contribution to the IRS is because you didn't have to do that. Well, no one told me. I didn't know. What do you mean no one told you? I know that if I didn't call you, somebody just like me called you over the last 30 years. I'm going to remind you of one of the conversations. It went something like this. And I realized you were driving home from work late and you got a flat, and then you fixed the flat, and now you were speeding because your spouse was cooking and you just knew it was going to be if you're late. So you get a speeding ticket, and then you finally sit down at 7:30 p.m., phone rings, hey, how you doing? It's Brian Ferguson from ING. I want to talk to you about how underinsured you look. And what was the answer when we could make those calls? Not interested. Click. So that was you choosing a charitable contribution to the IRS. But at least be empowered, at least take responsibility and ownership over the financial mess you created. Now, I will have some of these conversations word for word. I mean, I'm being a little playful because it's with the group. But believe me, I will say this to folks. And I do it playfully, but I also do it with the luxury of, after 5 minutes, they know I have you in my mind, not me. I'm not here to sell this to you because I need to pay for my kids' educations. I also don't work for free, but neither does your accountant, your attorney, or your garbage man. Okay? But pretty soon, you want folks to realize you're here for them, not you. And if they won't, or if they can't realize that, leave. Right after you do what? Get some referrals. I made the trip. I'm getting paid. I get paid in income from the company. I prefer directly from my prospects in the form of referrals. Okay? So again, process versus products will lead you to a client for life. Now, the other nice piece about this is the cross-selling opportunities. LIMRA says that people are going to buy a financial product between the ages of 30 and 75 once every 3 years. CD, mutual fund, insurance, whatever it may be, once every 3 years they're going to do something else. So position yourself to handle these needs, and then once every 3 years you have another sale coming. Right? So if I think about once every 3 years from the ages of 30 to 75, that's 45 years, once every 3 years. That's 15 transactions. Property and casualty I don't do. Health insurance I don't do. I'm not registered. Okay, are you getting 10 of them? Are you getting 5 of those secondary, those repeat sales from your client? Or are you in hit and run mode? Hit and run, hit and run, hit and run. Gotta find another one, gotta find another one. It just hamster on a wheel. Kind of gets tiring. Whereas here, even if you're getting 5 of the 15, 5 times, I don't know, 60 sales per year. It's pretty good. I mean, 60, then next year another 60, but of those 60, you know how many are coming from past client engagements. And the rest should be coming from referrals. All right, so a couple of things that I would suggest to you. The difference between a good, unbelievably good, to an Evolve 2013, one of the major components should be, in my opinion, your sales process, your skill set. Some people base their skill set on how much do I know about term and annuity, and I know more about IUL than you do. And mine's better, and I'm faster than you, and smarter than you, and cheaper than you, and you know, that type of stuff. That's what they're basing their skill set on, rather than being an expert at process. Okay, so with that said, again, lucky you have a long board. I'm going to have to ask you to hold that sideways. So there's skill. One way to get from 2012 of whatever you have to a tremendous Evolve 2013. There are 3 ways. You can either work really, really, really hard, which is, again, no problem with it. I love it. I love the 400. If you can get 10, 100 of those in a 2-month period, I mean, 100 of them, you're doing okay. You're making some money. Okay, but it's a lot of activity. It's a lot of activity. It's activity that you may be able to handle first, second, third year, maybe 4th or 5th, but by the time you get to the 10th year, you don't want to be working 100 $400 clients. Okay? Skill, I would say, is a major opportunity, and then marketing, which we've spoken about. I know I've spoken to this group about marketing and name flow. Okay, so this to me is more of a multiplier. These are arithmetic, so you know it's easy to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. This goes 2, 4, 16, whatever. It's exponential growth rather than just simply arithmetic growth. Okay, because the more people you have to see, the more active you will be. I would say that if we looked at the amount of appointments that we set in this room, it's probably lower than we need for us to all feel like we had an Evolve unbelievable year. Okay? But I don't think that in the room, a lot of you I've seen a couple of times are wimps. I don't think the reason that we're not setting enough appointments is you're totally wimps, right? The last thing I would tell somebody who's got 7 appointments scheduled is to just work twice as hard and schedule 14. That's not always the right answer. I want to know what are you setting? Who are you seeing? Because what if you want to go from the, I don't know, 40 grand you're making to 80, and then you want to go from 80 to 160? Guess what my advice is? We'll just set 28 appointments per week. I mean, management is overpaid when that's what we're telling people what to do, right? We're just overpaid. Sometimes I'll hear people make appointments, and I'm like, you want to set less of those. Hey, how you doing? Brian Ferguson from ING. I'm right here in Somerville or whatever, and I see you have a mortgage of this, or I just want to come by and introduce myself and put a face with a name, somewhere between Tuesday and Thursday, between the hours of 4 and 9. I sound like the cable guy, only they want cable. They'll put up with that nonsense. So then the person's like, yeah, whatever, come by when you want. And then I go click, and I check my box. Wow, appointment set. They don't get paid for checking boxes, right? Find out that they're wasting your time on the phone, rather than going out there and seeing them to waste time. Just added gas, travel, lunch, whatever. So I want to find out. If you're wasting my time, I want to find out fast. The greatest no I ever get is, how you doing, Brian Ferguson? Do you have a moment to speak? Where are you calling from? And I used to be clever, and I'd say, oh, I'm calling from right around the corner. I'm calling from Charleston. That's not what they're asking. They're saying, what company are you calling from? Because I don't know you. Okay? So I used to be tricky. I would just say, yeah, I'm calling from ING. I want to talk to you about how I've helped people like you make responsible decisions with their money. Not interested. Click. Thank you. That's a great no. It took about 13 seconds. So I can find the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. Okay? So again, activity, you can't be a wimp. But when you have the name flow, you are willing to make the calls. And then as you're out there in the field, that is what will drive your skill. These sessions are helpful, but most of the stuff that the big agents, the ones in this room that are succeeding more than the others, what they learn, in most cases they learned in the real world. They learned from being across from clients, not from training, more so from development. Okay? So, anyway, a couple of the changes that we've made that I think will help you here is we've got a final expense product that Ronnie is going to talk a little bit about. And we've also made some modifications to our IUL product, which gives you a number of options. And you can actually blend the product. So our final expense I will skip and let Ronnie discuss. I'll talk to you about our IUL Global Choice. Choices are good when you're working in a consultative process.
Need more
There-
board space?
Sorry?
Need more board space?
No, I'm good.
Alright.
Choices are not so good when you're working this way. Does anyone disagree with that? Some people do. They build their product. I want to have 100 of these and 100 of those and 400 of those, and I want to lay them out on the table and say, which one do you think? It just confuses them. Have 1, 2, 3 products. Know them well. And make sure you own them. Make sure you're convinced enough by your own presentation that you've actually done it for yourself. Okay? So again, if you're building a product-based, top-heavy plan, the more products you have, the more confusing it is, and the more reasons they have to just say, I need more time, I need to think about it, I need to ask somebody. Okay, but when you're planning this way, choices will be good. Just keep them limited and show them what the next choices are. Next choices, don't roll everything out at once. All right, so IUL Global Choice. We have a 1-year point-to-point, we have a 2-year point-to-point, and we have a 5-year point-to-point option. Who in the room has shown or sold one of our IUL Global products? What's going on?
We were involved in that nightmare case together. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, the nightmare case.
Yeah, the nightmare case.
Now, what was the nightmare case about?
Something else over.
So it hasn't been placed yet, right? You wrote it and
Yeah,
then
you gotta be placed, go ahead.
it went sideways, or?
He wasn't mentally stable.
Client's away.
Okay, so again, you know, a mentally unstable prospect, right? It happens. It actually happens quite a bit. I hope it's not your target market. But, you know, it happens quite a bit. It's your target market? Okay. So, what happened? How did it go, or why did it go sideways?
He was not convinced. He was convinced at one point, and then at another time he was so wishy-washy, and he would talk to other people about it.
Right.
And then they would talk him out of it. That's not the right way to go, you know.
Right.
And so he was whoever he was with, he just floated from one idea to the next. And he
Okay.
couldn't make a decision on his own.
Two major issues that he had. Number one, he had a hard time understanding how you could use life insurance as a reasonable means to actually fund retirement, and
Okay.
the other was the 5-year point-to-point. He really had a very, very difficult time understanding what was going on there and why that would be beneficial for him. So,
How might I erase some of this?
I offer, man.
Well, I didn't know if you were like rolling boards in, or... All right, let's talk about
All right.
5-year point.
I'd like to see you do it in a room with 4 walls and books.
I'll just go right around that.
That'd be fun.
5-year point-to-point. What are some of the, are you has anyone come across any pushback because of a 5-year point-to-point? So so either we're not talking about it to get the pushback, or the client has no issue with it. I would normally bet on the former, is that we're not talking about it to get enough pushback. There have been some rare cases where I've been on an appointment where someone said, well, I don't understand this five-year lock-in, so what happens? What happens in the first, 4 years? Because someone else is showing them a 1-year point-to-point. Well, what I would say to you is ultimately we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. 5 is the magic number. Okay, in year 1, we have a marker. That's all that's going on. You didn't get 0, you didn't get 1, you didn't get 9. We have a marker. Now, in our IUL, let me talk about the global, just the IUL global. You have a 1% floor. 1%. So in this 5-year point-to-point strategy, in year 1, what do we put there? 1%. Now, do you have any other investments or returns or assets that have done less than 1% in the last year, or 2 years, or 3 or 4 years ago? Yeah, you do. Most of them.
CDs.
The house you're in, the CDs, your whatever you had in the market. Okay? So you've had a lot of assets or returns or opportunities that provided you much less than that. We will never let you go backwards, ever. Now in year 2, what we do is we do the same thing. We give you a marker. So we don't know what you had. We know that it's not less than 1. So we know that it's better than a lot of what you've done on your own. Then we do that again in year 3, and in year 4, we got markers. Now in year 5, now we get to the fun part. Now we get into our 3 index strategy that is based upon your S&P, your Hang Seng, China, but we'll say really representing Asia. So your Hang Seng, and then we have your Euro Stocks 50, so Western Europe. So what we do is we actually take a look in that 5th year at which one of these indexes did the best. And how much of that do you get? 75%. We see which one did the second best. How much of that do you get? And then by default, 0 of the last one. Okay, now, we are going to give you a 1% floor. If 75% of the best index and 25 of the second was lower than 1, you can have lower than 1. So if the returns at 75-25% is lower than 1, you get to keep that. Now in year 6, what do we do? Same thing. Year 7, year 8, year 9. So all we're doing is we're giving you a positive marker so you'll never have negative returns. Negative returns is what confuse most investors. Because if you start with $1,000 and you have a minus 10% return, how much do you have? $900. Right? Now you go plus 10. What do you have? $990. What is your average return? 0. What's your real return? Minus. It's minus. So as soon as you introduce negative returns to the equation, your net and your average and your real returns are different. So we take negatives out. We take them off the table. People are tired of giving the money back. They're tired of, I don't know how to diversify and where to invest. And, I mean, giving the money back in the form of I had $1 million, now it's worth 700, or I had 1,000, now it's worth whatever. Okay? And they're tired of taxes. So within one product, we can wipe out the 3 major concerns. I'm tired of giving the money back through negatives. I'm tired of paying taxes on the amount that I get to keep. And I really just don't have a crystal ball. Well, what we say is, we'll give you a crystal ball. We're going to let you go to the horse track, and you won't pick the horses, you won't bet until the race is run. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? You go to the horse track, you don't have to pick your horses till the race is run, and we give you 75% of the first place finisher, 25 of the second, and none of the third. and we give you a 1% floor. How do we do that? Whenever something seems too good to be true, it is. Usually is. So to hedge this bet, to hedge the downside, we buy options. Okay? And to wait 5 years and give you the look-back strategy of crediting, we have to keep a certain amount of your upside potential to remove or put a floor on your downside potential loss. Now, if you look at a couple of ways you can invest, you kind of have inflation there, and you have T-bills, you have governments, you got large capital stock, and you have small capital stock, right? And then you probably have some emerging markets that are even more wild in fluctuations. So this volatility is the price you pay for this type of return. This isn't risk to me, it's volatility. This is as risky to me as this long term, as this is short term. This was a bad 5 years. You're not terribly excited about the great work I did if you started here and we're now here. But this, over 50 years, to be in corporate bonds or T-bills, pay taxes on those amounts, after inflation, you've lost purchasing power. Guaranteed loss of purchasing power, very risky to me. So this is as risky to me long term, certainly as this is short term. Now, what we have, ING's policy is based upon to take the lows out, to put that floor in. We actually use a participation rate rather than a cap. So pick another index product that has a cap of 12.5. But no, they have a 100% participation rate. Cap of 12.5, 100% participation rate. And then it gets misexplained like this. They'll say, well, let's take a look at small capital stock. It's averaged about 12%. Large capital stock, 9.6 since 1926. Then you're at, I don't know, 5% in corporate bonds, 3%, 3 point whatever in T-bills, and 3% inflation. So the way they explain it is we have a cap of 12.5%, but small capital stock is only averaging 12, so we're not here to take your money. We're not here to take your high end. We'll still give you the same floor, but we don't like this participation rate that ING has of 70%. We have a 100% participation rate. We just put a cap on your return that's lower than what the market has averaged anyway. Now that would be as good as the confused agent explaining it means it to be if we actually went 12, 12, 12, 12, 12 per year, but we don't. You make your money in our markets on the highs and you give it back on the lows. Take the low out and participate in all of the peaks, not in a capped amount. So you make markets in our economy or wherever when the markets do 40% or 20% or 60%. Now at 40%, we have a 70% participation rate. You got 28, we got 12. The other product, how much did you get? 12.5, they kept 27.5. So if our markets operated on an average, then that would be a legitimate claim. I don't want a cap on my return. I'd much rather have 70, which we just increased to 75, 75% participation rate with no cap in returns. So that means when this is 60, I'm just going to do it at 70%, just easier to math, I get 42%. When it's 40, I get 28, whatever, 20, yeah. So when it's 20, then we're getting a little bit closer to the others. Okay, so I get to keep 70%, I'm getting 14, I'm still better than they are. And when we're minus 3, I have a 1% floor. Versus their 1 year, point to point, with a 0% floor and a 12.5 cap on returns. But what do we do anyway? We added to our 5-year